75 on Friday, 80, an overnight low of 50 on Saturday. What a pleasant thing to tell you all. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9.
On World News Tonight this Monday, the NATO campaign against the Serbs. The president wants $6 billion more. Hardware, software, the internet, a very bad day for technology on the stock market. Millions of people on Medicare not getting the tests they need. And 4 years after Oklahoma City, the government's effort to protect where government works.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. The war against the Serbs in Yugoslavia is getting more violent and more expensive. It is 27 days now since the NATO bombing campaign began. And today, President Clinton asked Congress for $6 billion to keep the air war going and aid the ethnic Albanians. Which means, of course, the political debate about U.S. policy in the Balkans is about to get more intense. We'll get to that. We begin at the NATO air base in Italy, where the military establishment is still trying to get past last week's attack on civilians. NATO now acknowledges that its planes hit 2 roads in Kosovo where civilians were traveling. Here's ABC's John McCarthy.
First, NATO admitted that its aircraft dropped a total of 9 500-pound bombs on the 2 different convoys.
And it is possible there were civilian casualties at both locations.
For the first time, NATO showed the gun camera video from this controversial day. In a first attack against 3 vehicles, officials admitted the bombs may have struck a tractor. In the second, half a dozen aircraft went after what pilots were convinced was a military convoy a mile long.
As we watch these videos in the comfort of this room and on a large display, it appears possible the vehicles are tractors, are tractor-type vehicles. As I reviewed the tapes with the pilots, they agreed. However, they were emphatic that from the attack altitude to the naked eye, they appeared to be military vehicles.
In the large convoy, pilots reported the lead vehicles were moving rapidly and were regularly spaced, just like a military unit would be. Reports from other aircraft that there were civilians in the convoy never reached air controllers. For 40 minutes, NATO planes attacked until a slower, lower-flying A-10 got a closer look and called off the bombing.
For all of our efforts, we will never be perfect. We don't pretend to be perfect.
NATO officials are convinced that the Serbs tampered with the bloody scenes that were eventually photographed by television cameras. It was a public relations bonanza for Milosevic, adding pressure to NATO pilots who fly these missions to not let it happen again. John McCarthy, ABC News, Aviano Air Base in Italy.
Bad weather has limited NATO operations again today, but the overall campaign is getting, as we said, more intense. According to NATO's published figures, alliance planes have hit 127 target groups in the last week. That is more targets in a variety of categories than the alliance hit in the first 3 weeks of the campaign. ABC's Morton Dean has been to the Serbian city of Novi Sad.
Novi Sad has been a magnet for NATO bombs and missiles. Today, officials permitted reporters to view the damage from last night's attack, which hit the provincial government's main office building in the city's center. Lying just beyond a hole blown through the top floor was a metal pod from the attack weapon, still partially intact. Serial number FB02318. Many other sites in Serbia's second-largest city have been devastated by repeat visits from NATO. NATO claims Novi Sad, with its factories, petroleum facilities, and regional military headquarters, is an indispensable part of the country's military-industrial complex.
Officials say this city has been hit on all but 3 nights since the NATO bombing campaign began 27 nights ago.
Civilian life has been severely disrupted. With 3 bridges blown apart, today many residents were commuting across the Danube River on military barges. And today at mid-span, on one of the mangled bridges, was a facsimile of a traditional Yugoslav death notice, this one with President Clinton's name on it. Morton Dean, ABC News, Novi Sad.
There was another reminder today that in some ways the NATO alliance is like a committee. If one member wants something, the others have to agree. We reported last week the U.S. wants to set up a blockade in the Adriatic Sea to stop and search all ships heading for Yugoslavian ports. Some members of the alliance believe that is accelerating a war against the Serb people. Here's ABC's Jackie Judd.
The administration says it is the next logical step now that NATO's air campaign has inflicted heavy damage on refineries and fuel depots. It is time to stop oil deliveries by sea.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to be putting some of the pilots at risk that we currently are to choke off his military abilities and then let another source resupply.
The logic is not so apparent to some of the NATO allies who view a blockade as an alarming long-term commitment to the war effort. They also believe that severing oil supplies would inflict more suffering on civilians. And France has argued that NATO needs the approval of the United Nations to search ships and seize cargo. The U.S. disagrees.
We think that there are plenty of legal justifications that exist for this action. Let's remember we are in an armed conflict with the Belgrade authorities.
But because this is a war by consensus requiring the approval of all 19 NATO members, the objections cannot be ignored.
It is cumbersome, it is difficult, but it is the way that national priorities are brought together so that the countries can all act as one.
The U.S. already is days behind where it wants to be in getting approval to go after the ships, and this decision is considered far easier than others NATO may eventually face, including the possible use of ground forces. Jackie Judd, ABC News, the Pentagon.
Story of the refugees tonight, what the UN Commission for Refugees is calling a fairly ominous development. The number of ethnic Albanians leaving Kosovo slowed to a few dozen today, after a weekend when tens of thousands crossed the borders into Albania and Macedonia. The UN is concerned that once again Serb forces in Kosovo may be preventing thousands of ethnic Albanians from leaving the province. We'll have a good refugee news story at the end of the broadcast, but one more item at the moment related to refugees. It was confirmed today that 2 Americans, particularly dedicated to the cause of refugees, were killed in Albania yesterday. David McCall and his wife Penny were on a mission for Refugees International near the border with Kosovo when a car they were riding in went off the road and into a ravine. They and the woman in the middle of the picture, Yvette Pierpaoli, Refugee International's woman in Europe, who also died, had risked their lives in other places too. Mr. McCall had been particularly active in the international campaign to get rid of landmines. When we come back, some of the other news today. Investors are dumping the darlings of the market and trying to keep the terrorists at bay, what the government is doing about its installations.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Red Lobster.
You're the perfect pair. Smile. Laugh. Eat. Get together for delicious lobster and shrimp. Side by side for a short time and priced at just $12.99. The perfect combination for a pair like you. Escape to Red Lobster.
I see we're getting quite a jump on this.
Has just made like a sort of a recent move in the last 3 minutes.
How's your day going?
How are the pharmaceutical stocks doing?
First thing on the docket is to get as much information in as I can.
Yeah, let me check it.
For average daily volume being 27,000, so it looks like we're on track. So I can provide our clients with the best detailed information possible.
We're going to help them with all the research and all the information that we have here.
There's some regulatory legislation going adverse effect on their stock.
Chart looks good.
Checking with you next week.
Sounds great. Nice talking to you. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, too.
Thanks.
Every second, every minute, every hour. Your plants are nourished continuously when you use Osmocote plant food. Osmocote has extended time-release granules, so just one application, once a season, is all it takes. Osmocote plant food. All your plants need, all season long.
The heart-healthy soluble fiber found in psyllium is also found in Metamucil. which means it may now actually help reduce your risk of heart disease by lowering cholesterol. Metamucil, good for you, good for your heart.
There are those among us with very simple tastes. They only want the best. And for them, there's Fancy Feast gourmet cat food. Exceptionally moist and delicious. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
On Wall Street today, the bubble in technology stocks seems to be bleeding at the very least. Their run-up, as you know, has been remarkable. Today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down more than 53 points to close at 10,440. But on the NASDAQ, which is so heavy with technology company stocks, were down 138 points. And that is the second biggest drop there's ever been on the NASDAQ. So on the money tonight, here's ABC's Bob Jamieson.
Hardware, software, and internet companies were all battered in a dramatic acceleration of the sell-off in the high technology stocks that had driven the NASDAQ to repeated highs. Over the past 5 trading sessions, as investors have turned away from high-tech stocks, the NASDAQ has fallen 250 points, or almost 10%. There have been steep losses for individual stocks from their recent highs. The price of compact computer stock is down by 56%. Chipmaker Advanced Micro Devices down by 52%. Internet stocks, America Online down 36%, Yahoo 33%, and online broker eTrade.com down 49%. Analysts say many investors now believe warnings that these stocks had become enormously overpriced.
Or at least the realization that these things don't go up every day, and you can't buy on every dip. We've seen the sell-off, sell-offs that have lasted several days now.
Even with those losses, many high-tech stocks, particularly internet companies, are still higher than they were at the beginning of the year. Bob Jamieson, ABC News, New York.
Still on the money, a couple of other items, a side effect on the information explosion. Companies across the country say that the extra weight from a growing number of phone, cable, and data lines is putting a strain on utility poles. Watch the ones in your neighborhood. Attention to detail, we all know, is an important part of business. An 8th grader doing a school assignment on the metric system found that the 1 gram label on packets of Sweeten and Low uses an uppercase G instead of a lowercase one. The big G actually stands for giga, of course, which means a billion. Sweeten and Low says it's going to correct the mistake. Watch out for 8th graders. There is a new study today which finds a massive underuse of health services by older Americans. The study says that a vast majority are not getting tests as common as mammograms or eye exams that are paid for by Medicare. Here's ABC's Michelle Norris.
Few would argue that preventive health care, such as cancer screenings or vaccinations, is a good idea. But today's study shows that the vast majority of elderly Americans are not receiving those services, even though Medicare would cover the cost.
Well, this is a real wake-up call for physicians, hospitals, and leaders in communities across America.
The study found that only 1 in 4 women in their 60s received recommended screenings for breast cancer. Only 12% of all Medicare patients have screenings for colon cancer, and less than 1/3 of all Medicare patients receive pneumonia vaccines. Part of the problem, health experts say, is that patients only see doctors when they are sick, so medicine is focused on damage control instead of damage prevention.
There is no system in place to provide reminders to make it clear to both patients and doctors that these things need to be done.
What we need to do is give people information they need before they get sick so they get the proper preventive care.
Making sure that patients get the proper preventive care could help Medicare save millions over the long run. And since health experts warn that Medicare could run out of funding by the year 2015, this is one case where prevention really is the best medicine. Michelle Norris, ABC News, Washington.
Other news today, in the Florida Everglades, fire has now burned through more than 90,000 acres of dry sawgrass. It is the biggest brush fire so far this year in a very dry state. Firefighters insist that it's been largely contained, but for the 3rd day running, heavy smoke closed a stretch of Interstate 75, which is the region's main east-west highway. In Alabama today, a federal judge has rejected a challenge to a scientific panel's report on breast implants. As we reported, thousands of women had sued because one of the doctors on the panel had accepted money from Bristol Myers, which was the breast implant maker. The panel did find no evidence that breast implants actually cause illness. There was a decision from the Supreme Court today that could impact a lot of email traffic in this country. The court ruled that freedom of speech doesn't necessarily allow people to email smut or obscenities over the internet. The court let stand a law that says it is a crime to send an email which is obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, or indecent. In Berlin today, overseas again, a new beginning. This is the Reichstag. After a multi-million-dollar renovation, home once again to the German parliament. There is so much history here. Built in 1894 for the first German parliament, set on fire by a communist in 1933, which Adolf Hitler took advantage of to suspend civil liberties and consolidate the Nazi Party's grip on power. Bombed by the Allies during World War II, stormed by the Soviets at the end of the war. And now with its sensational new dome, a symbol of a new Germany reunited at the end of the Cold War. And tonight, German pilots are serving with NATO against the Serbs in Kosovo. So much history. In just a moment, guarding against terrorism, the government, is it doing enough? We'll take a closer look.
I should have used Preparation H. If you had, you wouldn't be suffering now. Preparation H helps stop itch and further irritation with a soothing layer of protection.
I should have used Preparation H.
Stops itch, stops irritation.
It's spring break. Hot tubs everywhere will be overflowing. Make sure your deck can take the heat with Thompson's Wood Protector. For rain, sun, mildew, it's the most powerful Thompson's yet. Thompson's Wood Protector. It never takes a day off.
Papa John's is only 14 years old.
But we've already been ranked higher in customer satisfaction than our 3 largest competitors. 3 years in a row.
Help us celebrate our big win.
Our success and our anniversary.
Get 2 large pizzas with 2 toppings for just $12. 2 large, 2 toppings, just $12.
Taste our pride.
Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's.
And our most important ingredient, better people.
You got that right.
Spectracide grass and weed killer works in 24 hours. The other brand takes a little longer. Actually, a lot longer. Spectracide works in hours, not days. That's why weeds can't hide from Spectracide.
Lively conversation every morning. Wrestling Sunday afternoons. Flower arranging weekends. Bike riding whenever. Boost daily. With essential vitamins and minerals, Boost is just one of those special things you do to take care of yourself. In bars and drinks, Boost, a nutritional part of this complete life.
When I take a liquid antacid, I feel like, ugh.
Well, now there's new fast-acting Mylanta Supreme.
What makes it supreme? Wow.
Oh, that's good. I'm not kidding.
Very light. Yeah, it tastes like a dessert.
Mylanta Supreme. Taste it for yourself.
It will seem like only yesterday to some people, but this is actually the 4th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. Today, hundreds of people gathered at the site of the Murrah Federal Building, where on that terrifying morning, April the 19th, 1995, 168 people were killed by one Timothy McVeigh. It was a shock to the whole nation when such violence was visited on the heartland, and it led the government to make all sorts of promises that government would now make it much more difficult for it to happen again. So tonight we take a closer look. First, here's ABC's James Walker.
In the nation's capital, streets are closed, alleys are blocked, and concrete walls surround government buildings.
We call it fighting for feet. You want to keep the bad guys as far away from your facility as possible to minimize the potential of another bombing.
Since the Oklahoma City bombing, the federal government says it has spent $600 million and made 8,000 improvements to increase security across the country. A new courthouse in Albuquerque is set back farther from the street. A federal building in Chicago has added security cameras.
We have done everything that reason compels to improve security in our federal buildings.
But in a recent government report, auditors inspected 69 federal buildings around Boston, Atlanta, and Fort Worth, and concluded there were significant shortcomings in upgrading security. And the problems even include prominent buildings in the nation's capital.
Here at the Ronald Reagan Center, home to 3 federal agencies, the public can walk right in. The people who work in this building have complained security is lax. And a confidential security review last fall found the building was vulnerable to a terrorist attack.
You guys going down the park?
Yeah.
At the entrance to the underground parking lot, there is a guard, but no barricade or gate to stop a terrorist from driving through. One floor above the parking lot is a daycare center. Why is there not more security here? Congress required that the Ronald Reagan building must be open to the public.
The buildings have to function. The buildings have to serve the American people. Our job is to do both. It's not a dilemma, it is a challenge.
A challenge for Americans and their right to move freely, a freedom already compromised by the real threat of terrorism. James Walker, ABC News, Washington.
It is sometimes argued that terrorists win a victory every time they oblige us to change the way we live, every time a democracy is forced to get behind another barrier, but it is the way it is. The good news is that technology is getting more sophisticated, and it is harder for terrorists to act without leaving a fingerprint. ABC's Bob Woodruff tonight on what the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the ATF, has been working on.
The terrorists who did this in Oklahoma City and in Kenya, in New York, and even Saudi Arabia all used a similar weapon, a truck bomb. In each case, investigators struggled to find the scattered evidence. But now scientists have discovered something remarkable. Truck bombs leave behind a distinct pattern of clues.
This strange-looking setting in the backwoods of Florida is actually ground zero in the government's latest high-tech offensive against terrorist bombings. In just a few seconds, these signs will be hit by shrapnel from a bomb buried inside this truck.
The project is called Dipole Mite. Its goal? Analyzing how vehicles explode, how far the pieces fly. Engineers measure the size of the crater and the bend in the street signs.
You can back calculate the amount of explosive from the bend of the sign.
So the further this is bent back, the stronger the bomb.
That's correct.
From this data, they have developed a software program for investigators. Here's how it works. A police officer arrives on scene and types in the dimensions of the blast crater. The program calculates not only the approximate size of the bomb, it also creates a map predicting where the major pieces, the clues, can be found.
But I would say probably straight out in that direction, go between these signs and out into the notch in the trees. We go out there about 700, 800 feet, we're going to find something.
The idea is to track down the important clues quickly.
It's a door skin.
Before the suspects get too far away. The hope is that more terrorists will get caught as computers help turn their bombs into evidence. Bob Woodruff, ABC News on Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida.
A closer look today on this anniversary. In a moment, a children's story, and this time, mostly a happy one.
You're not taking that laxative. Look, the label says it may cause cramping.
All these laxatives have stimulants that may cause cramping. Phillips doesn't. It's stimulant-free.
What a rare purse.
She sure is. Phillips, effective relief without harsh stimulants.
Start looking forward to the drive home. Stop commuting. Start driving. Introducing Alero. Alero by Oldsmobile. Start something.
To most people, gardening's a hobby, but to the professional grower, it's a serious business.
You can't be in this business and not love flowers. You know, we grow over 500 million flowers a year. We want big flowers. Color is what it's all about, and that's why we use Miracle-Gro. It's got the right balance, nutrition. You know, gardeners are always afraid that they're going to take this plant home and kill it. You know, growing plants is really easy. A dose of Miracle-Gro every so often, and I guarantee you, you're going to have nothing but great results.
Some people call it retirement planning. I think of this as future construction. Year by year, block by block, until...
It's our dream house.
Beautiful. But I was hoping we could afford to travel. This plan can help make it happen. We can even make sure you've got worry-free income for life.
AXA, dynamic vision, equitable, a trusted resource. Call us. Equitable is a member of the global AXA group.
How do you get healthy hair like this? Hair with this sheen and body?
features our pedigree with Champion Skin and Coat System in every can and bag.
Pedigree, developed with vets, recommended by top breeders.
You may be surprised who's drinking Ensure. Healthy people. Why? Because to help you stay healthy, you have to eat right. For the times you can't eat nutritious foods like these, drink Ensure. With the essential vitamins and minerals you find in vegetables, calcium like in milk, and protein like in fish. Ensure is a source of complete balanced nutrition to help you stay active and energetic. Drink Ensure. And drink to your health.
Here's a new idea. A pain reliever from Aleve that goes to work fast and lasts all day. Introducing new Aleve gel caps. Like most gel caps, they go to work fast, but Aleve gel caps do more than work fast. They have the strength to work all day long with just 2 pills. It would take 8 Tylenol to do that. Look, if your pain reliever starts fast but won't last, get one that does it all. New Aleve gel caps, 2 pills, all-day relief. Works for me.
Tonight, we've all done it, yelled at our kids. Do they listen, or can your anger do them harm?
You are not my son right now. You are not in control of yourself.
A wake-up call for parents on 2020 tonight.
Coming up next on Channel 2 News, a search to find out what's wiping out whales along our northwest coastline. And a southwest town may have a method to snuff out an ongoing stench. I'm Steve Dunn. News of the Northwest is next.
Just a brief review before we leave of our top story. NATO admitted today that its warplanes dropped bombs on 2 different roads in Kosovo last week, hitting 2 different convoys, causing civilian casualties at both locations. And the president said today he wants $6 billion more for the war effort and for the refugees. Now, my last word tonight from us about what happens afterwards sometimes. When we first saw Drin Soka 4 weeks ago, he had just seen much of his family murdered in Kosovo. The Serb police came in shooting, he said. He was shot in the arm and played dead. He said the Serbs then shot his mother and 3 sisters.
Mama.
And he escaped when the house was set on fire. Today, with the help of an Albanian family, Drin is on the road to recovery. He is eating. Not all children are. He has distractions. Not all the refugee children do. And like millions of us in every corner of the world, he watches the refugees struggle to get a handhold on life. At night, he says he hears his sisters.
In the night he wants to sleep with the light. If any noises is outside, he always is frightened.
But late last week, Drin was reunited with his father, who traced his son through the hospital. In their village, all of the men had left, he said, for fear that the Serbs would kill them. They did not believe that women and children would be executed. I was so happy to see him, his father said, but I've lost so much. One story, so many others. That is our report on World News Tonight. Don't forget 2020 later on. And on Nightline this evening, so many of those refugees wondering why NATO cannot do more to help them. I'm Peter Jennings. We'll see you tomorrow, I hope. Good night.
Tomorrow, should you eat eggs? The medical community changes its mind again. What's going on? Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than